90D, and maybe I think there's another name of, I think there's a particular camera they use. In fact, the camera they use in the football stand in the football pitch. There's this special camera they use in the football pitch. The lens is something else. Gives you 4K videos. I think that's the latest 4K high definition. Now, if you want to take a 4K high definition content and put it on a second-gen laptop, you've not even started to edit. Your laptop will just start looking at you like this because it can't accept that information. So it's like putting the engine of a Rolls Royce on a B2 car. The car would, of course. So that's very important. So why I'm saying that is, yes, of course I can use a 2022 software, probably because the laptop is an 11th-gen laptop, but it's important to understand the kind of laptop you're using, then kind of software you are using. So you might want to go for Premiere Pro, CS4, CS3, you have CS5, CS6, and then they switched to CC, and then I think it came back to 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and all that. So you can decide to go for a version that will run smoothly with your system. So, okay, without much talk, let's just, so I have Adobe Premiere Pro opened up, and just like every other software, you have your menus and your, so like I said, depending on the version you are using, the menus might be on a different area, but of course, your standard menu bar remains the same, which is your standard menu bar. So you have, by default, the icon of the software. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is pointing to. Oh, it's okay. So you have your menu bar, and then, of course, whatever new job you're doing, it's called a new project. Okay, so that's why you see that new project. Now, if it's a team project, you might not see team project in lower versions. Yeah, you might not see team project in lower versions. So this, I think, was added in more recent versions, so that you can work as a team. So what that simply means is that this is it's supported online. So normally, ideally, as you're working, your work is saving into the cloud. Okay, so recent versions of Adobe Suite is cloud-based. You can use them offline quite alright, but it's also cloud-based. So you can save that project, and somebody else can continue working from it anywhere in the world. Okay, so that's when you actually, okay, let's even click on it so you can see what it's saying. The machine must be signed into Adobe Creative Cloud to use team projects. So if I'm connected to my internet now, I'm not connected to my internet. If I'm connected to my internet now, it will take me to the sign-in page for Adobe Creative Cloud. I will sign in, and then my project will be emanated from there. So whatever changes, whatever corrections I'm making, saves to the cloud directly, and anybody can continue from that anywhere else. Okay, so I'll just simply click on OK, and it will pop up the interface for me to sign into cloud. But of course, like I said, I'm not signed into the cloud, so I'm going to close that and then show you the right step, which is new, file, new, and then project. So you can see it didn't bring that pop-up. It just came to this straight. Okay, so this interface now, we are on this entire window box, okay, menu box, is common to all Adobe Premiere Pro suites. It's common to all, irrespective of the version you are using. Of course, you can see the title there, new project. So you might just be following the direction of the mouse so that you understand and follow me as we progress. So the name of the project is quite important, so that tomorrow, if you are looking for it, or sometimes, if you are inexperienced, you can actually start looking for where you saved it into. So the name of the project helps. So let's assume we're doing this now. I would want to say, let's say Region 34 Media Training. Or let's just leave it as Region 34 Media. Look at the location. So users, testimony, OneDrive. So it's assuming that I want to save this online. OneDrive is a cloud, whatever. So I'm going to save it in a desired location. So if I click on browse here, I would have access to my computer such that I can select any part of my computer to save it into. So you can see there is a folder there on my desktop named Big Team Infotech and named Edited Videos. So that's the default folder, and that is where I want the job to be saved. So I can just click on select folder, and of course that is the path. We call it path, P-A-T-H, where the job will be saved into. Okay, so the next tab there is general, which is video rendering and playback. So you can see you have, so this is actually where there's a difference between your computer, the version of Premiere Pro you are using, and your device in total, actually. So you can see Mercury Playback Engine, GPU acceleration. So that's why it's important that you have a good graphics card installed on your computer, because with a good graphics card, your acceleration, your GPU, because in multimedia there's what we call FPS, which is called frame per second, frame rate per second. And I think let me put that in simple context. Frame per second simply means how many frames, okay, can you generate in a second? How many frames? I think there's what you call 27, 29 frames per second. In those days, in the days before computer actually came on board, I used to, I think I've seen that documentary before on TV, where I think in the cinemas then, that is, artists were highly paid because they were drawing on every cardboard. And then what those who are behind the cinemas will do is to be switching the cardboard as fast as possible, and it looks like a movie. I don't know if I'm making sense, but yes. So each cardboard is actually called a frame. So how many times it moves per second is what makes it a movie. So that's why sometimes, yes, so that's why it's called multiple media or audio visuals, okay? So that's the one that has where you can hear. So, and then that's where the word frame per second came into. So how many frames per second? So the computer is doing that for you now. In those days, it's hand. There's a machine that does the switching, and you'll be seeing it. You think it's movie you are watching. It's not a movie. It's somebody. So they would have cartooned it in different frames to make a clip. So, but the computer is doing that for you. So that's where you have frame per second. So this GPU acceleration you are seeing here is simply just to tell you that for the rendering, this is what it's using, and we have two options. So either Mercury Playback Engine software only or GPU acceleration. Now, you will see Mercury Playback Engine software only if your computer does not have a strong graphics card. Okay, so if your computer has a strong graphics card, the system will automatically detect it and prefer to use that because it's going to make your work faster. Okay, and okay, so then the video display format is in time code, and then feeds plus frame, then audio samples in milliseconds, and then capture, you have DV and HDV. Okay. Then you have your scratch disk, where your captured video would be saved. Your captured audio. So you can see what you are saying there is you are saying same as project. What it's simply saying is where the captured video will be saved is the same folder. Where the captured audio will be saved is the same folder. Let me show you something. Look at my folder. You can see something here. Adobe Premiere Pro autosave, Adobe Premiere Pro videos previews. These were contents that something I have done. So everything saves in that folder. Okay, so that's why you have that there. And your ingest settings. So some of these things actually were added on newer versions of Premiere Pro. They were not really there before. So, but where our focus is on the general aspect. And once you click on, I don't know if there's any, if you have questions, I think so that we can all flow. If there's anything you need me to probably explain a little further, I think you might just signify by raising, yeah, so that we don't have too much questions at the end of the day. Yeah, high definition video, yeah. Okay, yeah. By default, it's on DV. Now, depending, as you know, I said something before, garbage in, garbage out. Depending on the content, the quality of the content you are bringing in. So if I'm bringing in, like for example, on a Canon 90D, I would select HDV because I know it's going to give me 4K videos. But if I know that, well, it's just one of your regular cameras we are using, just simply leave it at DV. That's because HDV means, and at the moment you select HDV, you are going to increase the whole GPU acceleration thing we are talking about because it's going to require, more power as it were to run the driver to run. So it's important that to be safe. It's not like the DV is not even clear. The DV is clear, sharp, and the rest. But sometimes some specifications might tell you it's HDV, and then your camera itself must be able to record in that format. So most cameras record in DV. So I don't know. Can we move on? Good. So if I click on, okay, go ahead. Depending on the kind of system you are using. Some you can't change them. It comes with the board. It's not. You can't detach it. It's on the board here. You can't detach it. The older systems you can, but newer systems you can't. Yeah. Newer systems you can't. Older systems, of course, you can. But newer systems, I doubt that. I doubt that. But it's very important. That's why naturally, maybe I should also stress that naturally, when you know you want to be doing video professionally, your laptop is different from the usual. You have to go for a gaming laptop because of the graphics processing unit, which is the GPU. It's very high. And so sometimes, anyway, that's when laptop specification comes into question. And what's the purpose of why you are using the laptop? It might also shock you to know that those who are doing multimedia and those who are doing just normal photography, sometimes they use the same kind of laptop in terms of quality, because there's a quality of picture you will take. Your laptop will hang in trying to process it exactly, not to talk of video alone. So that's why they go for a gaming laptop. And the reason why they go for a gaming laptop is this. Recent games make use of high graphics processing unit. So if you don't want a lag in your game, you want your game to play smoothly. I'm talking of high definition games. Those are the kind of laptops you need. But if you are creating just maybe occasionally you create video, and what I mean is this. Now, let's say the maximum time I can shoot it. Now let me put it like this: the maximum time I can shoot a video is, I want to create a video, and the highest I've created, for me now personally, the highest I've created is maybe 30 minutes video, maybe because it's just a small clip or a short documentary. I don't need a gaming laptop. Or even if you want to shoot for and then you want to create a you want to render a content that will last about 3 hours. You have to go for a gaming laptop, and you do that consistently. And you want to, sometimes, for those high graded laptops, you can be rendering 3 or more content. So I think at the initial stage I showed you Premiere Pro, Audition, effects. Sometimes, so that you are able to, because if you work with a multimedia station where they need content from you, like all these people who do MTN and Airtel adverts, their content sometimes are almost on a weekly basis. They are creating new ads, new this and the rest. So sometimes to save time, you need to sometimes be running 3 or 4 projects at the same time. So let's say I'm already editing a particular video and I need to animate some aspect of the video. I don't know, and then it will take me 40 minutes to an hour for the rendering to finish. That simply means if the system is not really very strong, I have to wait 1 hour first for it to render. Then I will now come back to After Effects. But if your system is, top notch, as that one is rendering, you are minimizing the browser. It's rendering smoothly, effortlessly. You are working on another equally, because After Effects 2 is also very strong. You are doing your After Effects, animating, and you are testing. You are testing on the spot. Okay, we'll get to all that where you can. You are testing on the spot. It's not. There's no lag. It's running smoothly. But once you start seeing the thing doing like this, then you are in for it. Okay, so. All right. Any more questions? I think we should. Thank you. So this is the interface now for Adobe Premiere Pro, and okay. And I'll probably just explain. I'll just explain the interface a bit, and we'll just do a few things. So that you understand some certain things on it. So this is the basic interface. In older versions, okay, so this is where you can actually switch your versions. In older versions, I don't know if you are seeing what you have there, editing in CS5 layout, yeah. So in older versions, you can actually switch your layout. Which is called your workspace. So, but let me just explain. So, of course, working on that's common to every software. Then you have here your menu bar. So, of course, common to every software. And so here is your project tab. Now, the good thing is this: the Adobe Premiere Pro has multiple small tabs that have their own relevance, but this is where your content comes into, and you can create 2 or 3 screens from that, okay? So, because we don't have anything, this is blank, so there are some certain things that are not showing yet, but we'll still get to that. So I just want to explain this interface. So this is where you have, like, you can see the project, and then you can see what it's saying here, import media to start. You don't have anything, it's blank. That's why you're not seeing your timeline here, because it's blank. You're only seeing 0, 0, 0, 0. As soon as you import, it's going to give you. Thank you. So now then you have here your effect controls. You have your audio track mixer. So you can. So once we import something, I think all of this will show. Then you have your program and sequence. So you can see no sequences at the moment. That's why it's showing you. You can see no sequence, no sequence. So nothing is showing yet. And then here you have your effects. Your effects here. Okay. So video effects, video transitions, audio effects, and all the rest. And I think another important aspect here is your toolbox. Okay. Good thing about it is if you want to know the exact name, because sometimes it might be different. So for instance, the appropriate name according to the software is called a selection tool. Some other persons calls it we call it a drop tool. So depending on whatever works for you. Now, why it's called a selection tool is that you cannot perform an action on a clip without first of all clicking that tool. Yes, clicking that tool so that you can select any of these. That's why it's the first tool. So, for instance, I want to write a text now. As soon as I'm done and I want to continue to something else, I have to go and click. So that's why you can maybe say it's a drop tool, whichever language you prefer. So then you have your timeline, which is, so I think, and then here you have your Zoom interface. Okay, so this is still, okay, sorry, your audio interface. That's why you can see it in decibels. So, but the Zoom interface is not showing up yet because we don't have any thing. So let's just quickly get started. So here you can actually, now nothing is showing here as well. You can see I'm scrolling this. This is supposed to actually increase the size or the scale of the content you've imported, but nothing is happening because we've not imported any content. So let's quickly go on ahead. So there are several ways to import a content. Several ways. I was about going ahead with one of the very fastest ways. So by double-clicking on this place, you can import a content. Double-clicking, you can import a content. You can as well just click on File, okay? Click on Import, okay? So when we teach computer, sometimes we just say, okay, they are all the same thing, but we can just show you all. So some persons might just click on Control I, which is what you are saying there as a shortcut. Click on Import here. You can also click on Import Recent Files. So let's say I've worked with some of these recent files. I can also import that there. So that's one way. So, but somehow most times I just feel convenient to just double click here and takes me to where I want to import. So if I double click here, okay, and it comes up here. So all I need to do is go to where I have my work saved. So I just got this content now from the Kinchedu, and we'll be using that for the very start. So once I click on it, you can see importing files. Now, look at the speed at which it imported the file. If it was a low-grade system, to tell you maybe it's taking 2 minutes first before it imports the file. But you can see we imported a 47-minute file, a 47-minute 2-second, 14-millisecond file. Okay, so you will see the title, the frame rates, and the movie pixels. Yeah. But okay, so you can see the audio format. So it's going to tell you everything. If you just hover your cursor on that, it's going to tell you everything about the clip, and that's what you see. So this is what I was trying to say before. Because we only still have one here, that's why you are not seeing that difference. Okay, so if I have more than one, if I flicker this, okay, can you see that now? So if I have more than one, they would all appear in thumbnails there. They would all appear in thumbnails there. And so here you can actually lock this project. Remember at the beginning I said we can actually have this same interface, but working on the cloud. So you can decide to make some changes here. Maybe you decide to lock this place so that whoever is working on it on the other end would not tamper with it and all that. So as soon as you sorry, I'm trying to make sure that we cover a whole lot, so that's why I'm not going into some little areas I feel might not be needed. Okay, so but if you have questions, I mean, as we are progressing, please just be pointing my attention to it. But if you perceive that maybe we've not gotten there, so you might just relax and we'll get there. So to move your content to your timeline, you just click and drop. Okay, that's that. So just click and drop. Click and drop. That's all. Let me do that again. I'm going to close that. So you see, nothing is here, and this is, so it has actually created two for us. Let me delete one. Right click and delete, or perhaps clear. Okay, so you have that there, just one. Okay, so as soon as the moment I just to click, hold, and drag it to this place. Look at it. So click and drag. Once I release my mouse, it appears. So you can see all this was not there before. They started showing. So now, and then this is your scroll bar, which can help you zoom it in. Okay, and then it can also help you zoom it out. Okay, so zoom it in, however you want to use the language, where you can see everything on the timeline. You can see this is the entire 47 minutes I'm seeing. There's no extra one on this side. But once I reduce this here, then that means more or less I'm going into per minute or per second of the clip. Maybe I want to touch on something. Then remember what I said, this part wasn't showing before, so now we can see this aspect here. And just like the other time, we can also adjust this so that we can see the entire clip. So here you have half of the clip and full clip. That's if you have more than one clip, so that might not show now. And here you have to fit in. So if you want to zoom in, now ideally it's left on default fit, because I think it's more important that you are seeing every aspect of the clip. Because if I click here, if I click 50%, you are going to be seeing it in a tiny format. You are going to see every aspect of the clip, but you are going to see it in a tiny format. Okay, so if I click 150%, look at what you're going to see. So you have to, this scroll bar will now become activated, and I don't think it's important for that. So the most important thing is leave it as fit. And if you know you really want to see everything, and maybe your focus is, so usually when you are done with every part here, and you want to test run, okay, so let's say if I hit enter now, this will start playing, and then I want to start seeing everything. All I just need to do is minimize this, so I start seeing the content without affecting, because this is left on default fit. So the content scales as you drag. So if I move it, you can see it becomes so tiny and you might not even see it again. Because maybe this is where I'm focusing on. So depending on where you are focusing on, you can scale. Okay. So now I'm not even seeing my control bar anymore. Okay. So if I want to stop this video now from playing, I would have to hit enter, because I can't see my timeline that I used in dragging it anymore. So if I press enter now, okay, it starts from the beginning. So, but if I would want to stop, it, I can just come here and then click on stop with my space bar. Although if I had pressed space bar, then I think it will also still stop anyway. So it's also important, like I said, that you see the entire thing, so that it helps you, except you are working on a particular section. So that is when you can zoom in on that. So let me quickly explain some aspects that I think that are very important. So I said here was your selection tool. Here is your track select forward tool. Here is your ripple edit tool. Here is your result tool. I think result tool is perhaps, would I say, the most used tool in this part here. Result tool is perhaps the most used, because that's what you use in cutting the clips. So here is your slip tool. Okay. Here is your pan tool. here is your hand tool, and here is your type tool. So if I want to write on the text, you do that. So unlike maybe stuff like Photoshop, where you have a whole lot of tools, here you really have plenty of tools, because all you are doing is cutting and merging, cutting and merging, cutting and merging. You really use Premiere Pro for animations and effects. So you can see the beginning of this clip. Look at that animation at the beginning. This animation at the beginning now. It will be so difficult to do this with Premiere Pro, the animation itself. Now, this is where Premiere Pro comes in, having to make sure the video is color graded nicely. So there's what you call color grading. We'll talk about all that, okay, shortly. Okay, so primarily what you use Premiere Pro for is, apart from cutting the content and maybe putting them in order, there's what you call color grading, because when you are shooting your clips, there's a particular default ambience your camera will shoot it with. So if you want to change it, so color grading, okay, let me make you understand. Sometimes you might not realize what color grading does, but let me just give you a typical example. So let's say we want to shoot a video in the 60s. You simply switch it to what? Black and white. By default, the person that was shooting in color. It's just so that you understand, you would feel that effect. You just switch it to black and white, so that people, or instead of switching it to black and white, you might just make it an antique. Okay, an antique looks like faded brown. Okay, faded brown or faded ash color. Okay, it's a bit of color, but not full black and white. So that's where color grading comes in. So, but if you watch recent Nollywood movies, you can also see color grading there. So you can. So most times when I see movies, I can be able to tell that, and there's a cut here. This person didn't complete the color grading on this part, because there's a slight difference between this color graded aspect and this other aspect. But for a very smart, now that's why I said sometimes when you're actually capturing your content, that is where most of the job is done sometimes. So ideally, for a movie, and you want to use some specific set of cameras, it's important that the cameras, if you are using 4 cameras, let that 4 cameras be what you are going to use till the end. If you switch cameras, it's going to affect the color grading, because the person will be struggling with, how to make sure, because if the content is the same from the 4, let's say you are having four feed coming in, and each of the feeds, so you can grade every content in that camera with a particular color grading, another camera with a particular, and align it. But it's going to create much work when along the line the feed is same scene or something is coming from a different, so you are going to struggle with grading the color. So what sometimes professionals do is they finish editing, and that's, I think, part of the idea. You finish editing the entire clip, and then if the cameras are of the same quality, so let's say for instance you are shooting with a Canon 90D, for instance, okay, and you are shooting with 2 Canon 90D cameras, what is expected is that you have done with editing everything, because if it's the same Canon 90D, the color, of course you are setting the color grading from the camera and everything, the color ambience and whatever it is you are shooting. What you simply do is use one color grading from a particular clip and apply it to the entire clip, so that it's uniform. Okay, use the same color grading and apply it to the entire clip so that it's uniform. So I'm just trying to tell you that color grading and audio polishing is what sometimes you try to do in video editing, but the animated aspect of it, you're going to use Adobe, After Effects, or any other animating software. So that's what you have here, and you can also stop this, play this, trim, and all that. So there's actually a whole lot to start from. So this is This is the sound aspect. And another very important thing, I think it's always advisable, and I think for professional editors, you are supposed to have a good sound monitoring device. So not your regular kind of earpiece, not your regular kind of headphone. You have to have a studio-like headphone, so that when you're listening to the sound, ideally, you should be able to, if a pin falls on the floor, maybe while you are recording, you should be able to pick it. Now that's the beauty about it. You should be able to pick it and find a way to, at least first of all, understand that, okay, this sound is there. Now if you are playing it on your regular device or maybe on your phone or whatever, you might not hear that sound because of the kind of sound monitoring system you have. So you should be able to monitor the sound so that you can pick a sound that is not part of. So if there's echo, if there's an echo, you can hear it immediately and then go to your sound editing software to edit that. So that's very important. So that's why you are having that here. And sometimes if it's too high, so particularly if you are working with various clips, okay, so the sound coming in from here is higher in decibels than another one coming from another feed. So it's your job to fine tune to make sure all sound have the same. That's why sometimes in some certain TVs they will tell you that maybe when you are buying a very recent TV, they will tell you, I don't know how they're able to do it, but I've not really been able to see a TV that does that. But they will tell you, oh, if you switch between channels, it's the same sound between two different channels. So that's why you have to, maybe you are watching Arise before, then you switch to channels and you quickly look for your remote because the volume is too high. So meanwhile, some TVs are actually supposed to help you maintain that across, but it's quite difficult because the sound they are putting up is different. So it's the same thing too when you are editing your clips. If the sound is coming in from one feed and is higher than the other sound, you should be able to, and sometimes in multimedia, sound is actually, like I said initially, is a very crucial aspect. Why? Because, and you see that a whole lot in Nollywood movies, particularly the amateur ones that were created. So the mistake they sometimes make is they use a poor quality mic, and then even if they use a good mic to capture sound, positioning is a problem. So let's say the scene, we have a scene, let's say this entire place is our scene, and then the mic is positioned to where I am, and I'm the one talking. When it's your turn to talk, your voice will be lower than my own voice. So that's where whoever is editing the clip comes in. So apart from the fact that, okay, maybe they will set up an extra mic on your end, and even if they do set up an extra mic on your end, yours may now be louder than mine. So that's where a good sound editor comes in to cut the clips according to the sound aspect and then find an average decibel for all of them. So if he has to increase this one and lower this one and all that, so that's a different story entirely. So, but it's always very important that that is done. So, okay, so I think I will just show you a few things randomly, because if we decide to take it one after the other, we might not leave here. So I'll just show you some random areas, and then if you have areas you feel you are most interested in, because like I said, video editing is quite straightforward. It's cut. So let's assume now we want to cut this video into two halves. So all you just do is select this razor tool and find any place. So I just cut this aspect. So I'm cutting another area. Okay. So before you cut, I'm sure you've seen this timeline here. Okay. So you actually will see it in I think that's four digits, four separate digits. One, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the hour mark. This is the minute mark. This is the second mark, and then this is millisecond mark. That's the good thing. So your hour mark, your minutes mark, your seconds mark, and milliseconds mark, because you should be able to edit down to the closest millisecond. So if I increase this now, can you see what you're seeing now? Okay, so okay, the video is actually playing. So you can see this is 05, and then you can see the dividers there. Okay, that marks each point. So you can use that in editing your video to know that okay, this man started saying something at the 10 minutes 5 seconds into the clip, and I don't want that. Perhaps you don't. Some of these interviews that are run by broadcast house, media houses, I mean, goes through some very serious editing, particularly the pre-recorded one. You guys saw the recent interview by some of the political aspirants and all that for media houses. So they would have gone, edited, make sure the sound is okay and the rest, cut out some places, and do it neatly that you don't even know some aspects have been cut out. So sometimes it's actually very difficult for you to separate multimedia from the script writer, the content creator, the producer, the cinematographer, and all this continuity and the rest. Because the job of a multimedia person, is to actually make sure that he's editing the content according to how the producer wants it. That's the job of the multimedia person, to make sure he's editing the content as the script has been written and as the content has been written. That is why, for the start of a clip, first of all, for you to have a very quality production, there must be a script. That's the very first thing you have to do. There must be a script, because all these ones we are doing, for instance, now, well, it's just showing you how to edit. But let's say you are producing a professional movie, there has to be a script first. So from that script, then you now, of course, the script is where you have the scenes and the acts, scene 1, act 2, and the rest. Okay? So that's why you now have those things written, because most times, and that, how do you know? Most times the people that edit some of these are Nollywood videos, you wonder if they go to school, because the text that they use is supporting. I mean, I've seen a lot of funny description. Okay, so but what I want to draw out is that you see those act 1, scene 2 at the beginning of the movie. It helps the person editing, because I'm talking now at the professional level. It helps the person editing to say, okay, so they actually name those clips. They actually name those clips. So if you see a typical movie production, media production individual or person or his laptop, you will see a bunch of folders. For a particular scene, it's a folder. Why? Because that particular scene has, maybe they are using 3 cameras for a standard production. So each of those 3 cameras, so in one folder, you just see maybe like, I'm just giving you an example, you just see maybe scene 1. You open scene 1, you see camera A, camera B, camera C. So you have the content from all those cameras. So the person has to what? Make sure, so of course movies are in scenes, isn't it? So you first of all edit scene 1, edit scene 2, edit scene 3, and then of course if it adds sub-scenes, which is act and the rest, you would also edit that. So by the time you do all of that, you will bring them together to make a movie. Okay, so that's why it's important that you have scripting involved, so that you're able to create all that. Okay, so I just cut this now, and I had to go down to my selection tool so that I can, so, and I would love to see the entire thing, so I'm going to scroll, and I can just simply move them apart. So I've divided the entire thing into 3 parts, and because I divided it into 3 parts, okay, so this doesn't have a limit, and I think I should stress that this particular scroll bar doesn't have a limit. It doesn't. If I watch this, if I cut this again into 2, right? Watch what will happen. Can you see that it has gotten to the end here, right? If I move this way, see what happens. I don't know if you are saying it gave it more space. So that means what? I can actually, so you can scroll and keep scrolling because you can see the entire thing on your timeline. You can keep scrolling so that you see the entire thing on your timeline. So that's just what I want to, and of course, the aspect in between it is dark because there's nothing there. It's pure black. But then you observe yellow lines, yellow lines, yellow lines. That's telling you that there are active content in those lines. And you have three colors of those lines. You have the yellow, red, and green. This line has red, yellow, and green. So yellow simply means it's a fresh content. I've not done anything on it. I've not done anything on it. By the time I maybe put an effect on it, it will change to red. Yellow means I just brought it in. I've not done anything yet. But by the time I put an effect on it, it changes to red. Means there's an effect on it, but it's not rendered yet. By the time I render it, it changes to green. So you can actually have various colors. So let's just look at it. So let's say I want to. So this is it now. So I want to give it a color. So let me just type color here, and it's important to realize that most softwares, and our operating system works with the US English, so that's why you can see I'm typing COLOR, not COLOUR, because nothing would pop up. So because your operating system is from Microsoft, and Microsoft is a US organization, so that's why. So let's say I want to, let's say there's what you call fast color corrector. So this has to do with colors now. So fast. Okay, color corrector. So let's say I'm putting that on this clip now. Okay, and still nothing is happening. You can see the color is still yellow, right? But as soon as I change the color, naturally the line should change to red. Okay, or let me see if I can also zoom as well. So let's say I want to scale that particular area. Okay, so well, maybe for this version, I don't know, but it actually has three colors. Then if you render by pressing enter, okay, if you render by pressing enter, at the end of the rendering process, okay, let me just see if I can zoom this in a bit for you so that you see that. At the end of the rendering process, it changes to green. It means it's complete. The action that has been performed on it is complete. And then you have, so at the initial aspect, we are seeing, let me pause this and show you what, so you can see this, Adobe Premiere Pro Video Previews. Previews means that it has actually rendered the video, and this video is available for preview. So if I open that preview, you are going to see the video that has been rendered. Sometimes when you are editing, when you are saving your video at the end, to make your rendering faster, you can decide to say use previews to render. Means I've seen the video, everything has rendered, all my effects has worked. Instead of rendering again from the beginning, gather all the previews and match them together as my video. It renders faster and smoothly. Okay? So what I did there was just, so maybe I should also use that opportunity. So I'll split the video into three options. So let me just use the opportunity to explain for that. I think we're going to focus on this aspect and then on this aspect, and then we'll now go into more practicals. So this aspect and this aspect. So the first thing you have there is motion. Okay, let me minimize. So you can see this fast color corrector. I can delete it. Once I click on delete, it goes. The video comes back to, I mean, like I didn't do anything, right? So you have two aspects, the video aspect and the audio aspect. So by default, you have motion, opacity, and time remapping. Okay, time remapping is, I don't know if you've seen movies where somebody wants to shoot a basketball shot and then he runs with full speed and then he's about to throw it, it now goes in slow motion. and dongs. So that's your time remapping. Okay. Then you have, that means you are remapping the time. There's a time frame. Then you have your audio aspect, your volume, channel volume, and panel. Okay. So most times you really don't need to come in here. Okay, and lest I forget, one very quick thing I should say is that the same way we have this, right, it's the same way we have this on this aspect. I don't know if you are seeing that. Okay, and then it's the same way we have it for the audio. So I think I should have explained that from beginning. So the first part is your video, the second part at the bottom is your audio. So, okay. Forgive me, I'm trying to put in a lot of things at the same time. So the first part is your video, and the second part is your audio, and you can have multiple videos in different layers. Okay, we'll still get to that part anyway. You can have multiple videos in different layers, and then you can see your audio. You can see the track line, okay, where you have the pitch and zero pitch and the rest. Okay, good. So let me come back here. So that's for this. I'm going to come back and explain how each of these is used. Then for the, okay, let me move this a bit forward. So you see, I'm not interested in this aspect. I'm interested in this aspect. So now, by default, you have three video layers: video 1, video 2, video 3, and also three audio layers. Okay, which is audio 1, audio 2, audio 3. So audio 1, video 1 goes to audio 1, video 2 goes to audio 2. So if I bring in another clip now, as it were, so let's assume, now that's the beauty of this. So let's assume I want to bring this here. Okay, that's this. Okay, so let's say I want to bring this here. So you see that. So video 2, I just put another video on top of video 2 layer, and then you have, it goes into audio 2. Now, by default, your track line detects the layer, the topmost layer. That's what it shows. Look at this. That's what it shows. Let me minimize this. Okay, and then also reduce this a bit so that you see what I mean. Sorry, I didn't come with my mouse, so that's why it would have been a lot easier. So now. So that's what you have here. However, you can actually toggle on and off what you want to see using the track output. So look at, you can see that now. I'm saying if I toggle this, if I put that slash above it, I will only see video 1 layer. If I toggle this back on, is video 2 layer I'm going to see, which is this. So what that simply means is this. I can, and this is some of the skills I think I might have to mention. So if I decide to cut this here and cut this here, right? And then I delete this aspect. What that simply means is, from here it shows you video 2. As soon as it crosses into here, it shows you video 1. And as soon as it crosses into here, it shows you what? Video 2 again. So those are the techniques. But we'll come back to all that. But I just wanted to, so the question should be, is there only 3 video layers we can have? Because we have 3, by default we have 3, and then, look at that, yeah, and then audio we also have 3. No. Once the third video layer is full, you can import, as soon as you put your content there, it creates an automatic layer, which is video 4. So let's experiment that and see. So I can move this content here, okay, sorry. Okay, so you can see that video 3 is now occupied. Okay, so let's assume I'm cutting this. Let me cut something from here, and then I move it up. You can see video 4 layer has been created now. So you can create multiple layers. I'm really not sure if there's a limit, but I think you have about, I think you have about, is it 10? I can't remember now because I've really not exhausted it. Okay, so but I think there's a limit, and really because you really don't need to use all that layers. you really don't need to, because for part time, it's only one layer that is seen. So what's the essence of hiding others under, as it were? Okay, so that's it. So, but if you notice something here, because I was trying to drag my clip in a different manner, you can see the audio moves, because by default is audio 1, it moves and wipes away. I don't know if you are seeing my mouse. You can see first of all, this is the clip, right? The one below is the audio. If I move it above this, you can see it's not moving like down. It actually still stays on audio 1. So what that simply means is that audio 1 is now having part of this clip, and then this is also, so it cuts that part off. It cuts that part off. So that's the same thing too for audio. So, but let's really talk about some very basic things I'm sure would interest you. So let's say, so mind you, we are actually using this particular interface, this particular one, because that's which is video 4. That's what it's showing. Video 4 is what it's showing. By the time I remove the eye, you will see that something else shows. I remove the eye for the second one, something else shows, right? So I think you would appreciate it better if we were using different clips. That's when you would know that, okay, it's showing. But of course, you can see the different moments there and all that. So motion is perhaps one of the very important aspects of your effects. So you have your position, and it's in the X and Y axis. So if you move this, you're moving it on the horizontal axis, which is what? Horizontal is the X or Y? X. Okay, so, and vertical is where? Huh? Why? We don't have mathematics students here. Okay, so now this is, it's important you know some of these things, because when you are animating, your positioning comes in very handy. In fact, like I said, you can actually do a couple of animation with Premiere Pro, but not as good as After Effects. So if you don't know how to use your positioning and your timing, so you can see there are values there. So this is 2.4. There's actually a default, which once you click on this now, it resets it to the default, 213 by 120. You can see this toggles and comes back. So now these are effects. If you are worried that you've done something wrong, just come back here and click undo. What it does, it doesn't undo the last effect. It actually wipes away everything you've done on that effect. So let's say I've moved this way, I've moved this way. I say okay, fine. I come back again. I say move it this way again, move it this way. After everything, once you click on this, it comes back to the default as it was before. Okay, so that's important. Then the next one is your scale. Okay, now I'm actually not done with this, because we could actually use this a whole lot more when we are animating. If I click on this, you can see it brings out something for me. It says this action will delete the existing keyframes. Do you want to continue? Okay, sorry, let me do that again. So I clicked on it more than once. So I've clicked on it now. If you notice, there's a tiny, let me reduce this. So you can see this. If I click on it, it disappears. You don't have anything there. That's what you call keyframe. Keyframe. I'm going to explain it in layman's language what it does, but keyframe simply means it identifies an effect in a particular frame, or it recognizes that you've created an effect in a particular frame. So let's assume, for instance, for this particular video, this is the video here. You can see this now. Okay, it's sliding, right? So let's say I want it to slide from left to right. Okay, all the way down. So first and foremost, I don't even want it in the frame. Like, I don't want it in frame. And then I want to slide it all the way down to the end here. What I would simply do, that's why I was asking that we need to know our X and Y positioning properly. So that means all I'm doing is working with what? Which axis is that? Your X axis. That's all I'm working with. So now, oh, it has gone off. But let me just, I will explain, maybe when the light comes, maybe I just stop, I'll just do a lot of oral explanation. Sorry, you might just have to imagine what was on the screen before. So now, for positioning, what you simply would do is drag the entire clip using that numbers. You can see what was there was minus. You could see it could go from minus to plus, but there's nothing like plus. You only see minus. So plus is, the plus sign is not included. But once you are going outside 0 or below 0, it starts adding minus. But above 0, it doesn't add any other thing. It's just, you know, it's plus. That's okay. So all right. I think we're back up. So minus 297 was going to keep the picture outside the frame. Then you're going to look for, take it back, and then find out what will take it into the frame. Sometimes when you are editing videos, you actually keep a pen and paper to write numbers actually. I mean, I've done that. You keep a pen and paper. Okay, this is what takes it outside the frame. Because when you're now trying to create that position, you need specific numbers. Except you are just trying to do something in a hurry. If you are trying to do something in a hurry, you can just, as long as it has gone outside the frame, no problem. But if you want, let's say you want it to start appearing almost immediately, that means you have to keep it close to the entry very well, which is, there must be a number for that. But if you are taking it way outside, which maybe doesn't matter to you, then you might not need to write down the number. Okay? So I've taken it way outside on the right, way outside on the left. Then that is when you will now toggle. That's when you now toggle on your position. That's when you will now toggle on your position to say, at this so and so frame, I don't want to see this. But as soon as it moves like this, let the animation start. So your keyframe would actually aid your animation. It actually tells the computer that from this particular point, let my animation start like this. Okay? So once you've done that, and then you move, so what you simply do is toggle on your position, okay? Put the cursor there, put the keyframe there, and then take it. Okay, so are we back up now? Not bright yet. Okay. All right, so then you move it outside the other frame, then put a keyframe there. Once you play that key, it will move that way because it has recognized that there's a keyframe added to that. All right, so let me just do that because of our time. So you can see I had already moved it. So I'm moving it back now outside the frame, right? I'm moving it back outside the frame, and that's minus 302. That's the number I'm saying here, minus 302. Let me increase this part here. So this is the clip I'm working on. Particular one, okay, I've increased it so that you can be able to see, and then I can also increase it like this so that the keyframes are actually now visible. So I've toggled on my position, so it has added a keyframe. So this is a keyframe. So I move it all the way to this part, right? And then So this is why I was saying about the number. Normally what I should do is to put a number here. That number will signify, the extreme end, which was I think about 700 and something. Because if you are not careful in doing that, let's say you manually do that, if you don't do it well, you could actually create two keyframes. Because as soon as you start, if you drop your mouse, it creates a keyframe there. If you continue, it creates another one. Meanwhile, you only needed one. So I'm just going to move it this way. Okay, I didn't drop my mouse, so it's 762. Now, if you click back this clip, okay, you are going to see it move from one aspect to the other aspect. But this is going to be so slow. Why it's so slow is because the clip itself is long. I didn't know I'm doing that for a clip of about, I think 3 minutes. Okay? So it's a 3 minute clip. And I did it all the way down. So if I want to make this faster, several ways. It's either I start all over again, or this is the keyframe here. I simply carry it and drag it closer to the first one. And if I play this again, it's going to be faster this time around. A bit faster, but not as, I think it was faster than the other one before. But if I want it faster again, I still want to move this close. So I can actually also still zoom in here. You can see, it's now actually telling you the actual time. So you have from 0, 0, 0, 0 minutes to 15 seconds. So you have 15 seconds. Before it was showing about a minute, 2 minutes. So now if I play this again, okay, it's a bit faster. So 15 seconds is going to do this entire thing in 15 seconds. Okay? It's going to do the entire thing in 15 seconds. And if I want it faster, let's say I want it in less than 15 seconds, now it's going to be faster once I hit my spacebar and I play it. So that's why it's important for you to realize that you are working, in terms of seconds and milliseconds. Now, the same thing, so if I don't want this entire thing, let's say I don't even want the animation, I don't need to start deleting this keyframe. Although I can actually select it, right click on it, and click on clear. I can do that, and it will leave. But it's only this one that will leave. This other one that is here, somewhere here like this. And while you are saying it, if you look at this very well, I don't know if it's so clear, you would see that this side is whiter than this side, right? This small side is whiter than this other small side. It's like a mirror stuff. So it is one side you are seeing here. The other side you are not seeing on this part because it's starting from 0. Okay? So that's what you have there. So now, if I want to simply remove the animation, all I just need to do is what? Click on this timeline, and this action will delete existing keyframes. Do you want to continue? So all positioning keyframes on this particular clip, because this is selected, all position keyframes on this particular selected clip will disappear. If I click on OK, you can see everything leaves. All the keyframes would leave. Now, it is this same principle that we've just done that you can use for scaling as well. So if you want it to, so scaling simply means zooming in, zooming out in layman's language. Okay? So the same idea is what you also, so this is positioning and this is scaling. So you can see it can go from 0 to 200. Currently we have it at 142. The clip is at 142. So look at this is okay. So you are not seeing anything. Why you're not seeing anything is because I still left this number at 762. That means the clip is outside the frame. This particular first clip is outside the frame. But if I toggle this, it comes back to the frame. So if I zoom this in, this is, so I was doing this before, but you were not seeing it because it was happening outside the frame. So if I zoom this now, you would see it zoom in and out. So if I also want to, this is a movement. So every movement can be animated. So if I also want to animate this, the simple thing I will also still do is to use your keyframes. Is to use your keyframes. Okay? So I'll show you how these keyframes matter. We'll do a very simple, maybe that would be the only practical example we'll do today, but I'm sure it will thrill you guys. It's a very simple thing. I'm sure you've seen it a whole lot in movies, and you think it's very complex to do, but the reason why I chose the example is so that you understand that media editing is quite easy and simple. It's just about being creative and thinking. So I'm sure you've seen that aspect in movies where somebody's body would leave, spirit or soul will leave the body and the rest. It's a very simple thing to do. Okay, it's just using your keyframes and using your positioning. That is all. That is all. So we'll do that at the end, but I just need to give you some basic understanding about how the interface works. So you see that. So the same thing too. Zooming in and zooming out. So let's say I don't like seeing this black thing around it, this black stuff around it. Okay, so I want it to be full screen such that, yes, totally full. I don't want to see anything. That's why I was saying that your numbers, sometimes you might have to write down your numbers. So you can see here, this is 130. Okay, so what it simply means at 130, I wouldn't see, okay, you really are not seeing numbers, but it's okay, I will explain. So at 130, I wouldn't see the black stuffs on the side. But anything less than 130, I would see it. So it's not left for me to decide where I want to start from. So let's say I want to start from 10. So I can start by saying, good, put 10 here. So the clip starts, you can see somewhere here in the middle, the clip is there. And then I start what? By pressing my toggle animation, which is what? Keyframe. You can see it adds a keyframe. And from the previous experience we had with positioning, looking at this, you might think that, this is a small clip. But you can see it's a 3-minute clip. So if I decide to say, I want it to go all the way down, that means for 3 minutes, it's going to keep zooming till it gets up. So I'm not going to go too far this time around. I'm going to, okay, let me actually remove this particular keyframe because it's not starting from 0. So this is actually from 0. And then I can toggle my keyframe. So you can see it's there now. So I just move it maybe another 10 seconds, and then I say it should go 130. Remember, it was 130 we talked about the last time. 130, it scales up. So if I press this now, you can see it slowly zooms in, and then it stops once the black on the sides have fully covered up. And then it stops, and then it continues. It's not going to increase in size again. That's it. So everything and anything can be animated. Everything and anything can be animated. So that's for scale. And like I said, once I toggle this, all these keyframes would disappear. Okay, and if I do that, it asks me, the action will delete existing keyframes. Do you want to continue? I would say yes. And then if I click on this, it takes it back to the original scale. How the clip came. That's just what it means. How the clip came in. Okay? So then this is scaling for width. And then this other part here is rotation. So this is rotation. So if I want to rotate the clip, you can see that. If I want to rotate the clip, it rotates in any part. And like I said too, if we want to animate this such that it starts horizontally, and then it gets a particular minute, it rotates gradually. It's just to also still toggle your keyframe and know the numbers and know the spacing. So if I wanted to finish the animation in 2 seconds, if I wanted to finish the animation in 5 seconds, I can also determine that by turning down, increasing this time scroll bar here. So this time scroll bar can give you a proper perspective on that. I think then you have the anchor point. Anchor point simply means now this is happening from the center. If it's rotating from the center. Let's say I don't want it to rotate from the center. I want it to rotate from another place entirely. So I can actually switch the anchor point. Look at that. I can actually switch the anchor point from a particular perspective. So I can also toggle the anchor point and then animate it as well, so that it rotates from a different perspective. And then you have your anti-flicker filter. Okay, so you might not really see anything here. I think this has to do with some certain clips. I don't know if you've seen some clips where, let's say you are shooting the clip on the beach, and then there's a particular part there, or even, not even on the beach, sometimes there's a particular part there that is sunny or white. So you can actually adjust all that such that it blends together with your clip. So sometimes some animations really might not work because it depends on the particular clip you're working on. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, so sorry, I was just trying to imagine so many kind of practicals we would be able to do today. So, so that's for motion. Where all these three is for video, and then you have here the volume. So largely because you're not hearing what this is saying. Otherwise, I would have said we increase the volume. So if I increase this, I mean, you can see he will be talking so loud, so low, and the rest. Okay, so I can just click on undo everything I've done. Okay, comes back. So all the clip comes back to normal. So that's that. So like I said, if you do have questions, please just keep putting up your hand. So now this other part here. Let's say I want to. Let's say, okay, so let me reduce this. So let's say I want to move this. You can see if I'm moving this, the audio is also moving as well. So let's say I want to just move only either of them, maybe the video or the audio, and I don't want this to move with it. All I just simply need to do is lock the audio interface. So if I click on this, it's going to close that track. You can see this. Okay, it's not really showing. It's showing like it's cross. Yes, it will affect. Now, sometimes you may have reasons to. Sometimes you may have reasons to. Let me give you some times when you can do that. In fact, there's no how you're editing professionally that you wouldn't get to do that eventually. So let's say you have 3 cameras and you're shooting a movie, and I'm sure you understand the reason why you are using. Okay, like now one is focused on you guys, one is focused on me, because we're having that. So let's say we want to also have one that will be focused on the media person here. So if you're shooting a movie, most times there are actually, ideally you should have at least like 3 cameras on set. It's only when you are on a short or a little budget, that is when you'll be using 1 camera. But ideally, you should have 3. In fact, sometimes you can have more than 3, depending on what you are shooting, actually. Depending on what you are shooting. Like, really depending on what you are shooting and the environment and what it is you're doing. Ideally, you should have more than 1, at least 2. In fact, in professional setting, like when I mean like in Hollywood and the rest, and I don't think they do that in our Nigerian movies. Ideally, you should have in fact 2 spare cameras, and it's not for shooting you; it's actually for covering those that are covering you. That's why you get behind the scenes. Ideally, you should have 1 for behind the scenes. It's not meant for shooting. The behind the scenes camera is actually for 2 reasons: 1 for backup, because sometimes you must have finished the video, your A-list actor or actress have gone back to his country home, and then you now say, sorry, something happened. So there should be a backup clip. So, but ideally you should have like 3 cameras for getting various angles, and then maybe